Hello, beautiful people of YouTube. How you doing? Will Perry here. I thought I'd do things slightly differently today, and we'll see how it goes. Let me know. Today I was at the garage, took the car in, and I was sitting there waiting, had a nice cup of coffee, and I took the iPad and I noted down some sort of kind of formatty, kind of my story stuff. That's what it's entitled. I got it here, my story, and I just thought, actually, I'll just go through it and just see if it resonates with you, if it makes sense, if it's helpful, if this content kind of works for you. I'm going to go through the problems that I had in my life that I saw, and those were problems around relationships. Why I kept failing in relationships. I'm 3 times divorced. I've got 4 beautiful children, but I don't like the fact that I was divorced. What was it about me? Why did I keep attracting a certain type of person? What's wrong with me? That's it. What's wrong with me? And I knew, well, I'm useless, ugly, and stupid. I knew that, but deep down, I had to. Anyway, that's what I felt about myself. I believed that, but I didn't say that. I didn't acknowledge it. It's like I had to keep a lid on. Anyway, does that relate? Can you relate to that? So, the patterns that I noticed in myself. These patterns are really important to see in yourself if you're going to move forward. Things that the people I help, and the people that have this, that struggle with this, the things that they have in common, the causes that create this stuff, what you can do to change this stuff and these patterns, to tackle them, what might stop you, how you're caged by your own thinking. That's number 6. And number 7, next steps you might want to take. So how's that? What I'm going to do is going to get the thing ready to stop and pause it and continue. I'm not going to edit it, but just pause it when I need to, just to refresh. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to pause it. There, not much of a pause. So, firstly, the patterns I noticed within myself. I kept repeating kind of patterns in relationships where I would not be able to verbalize stuff. I wouldn't be able to speak. I'd feel like there's something wrong with me, and the other person, I'll put them on a pedestal. I think they were the best thing. I think I needed them. I needed them in my life to sort me out because there was something wrong with me. And although I didn't acknowledge it quite so easily, it's taken a lot of time to acknowledge that, how I felt about myself. But I just felt like I needed somebody. I always needed somebody in my life to make me, to carry me through life, not because I'm not useless, because I'm a lovely, kind, easygoing, funny, and all that sort of stuff. But that's not enough. That's not enough on its own. I need somebody else, and the things that I needed in them were going to prop up the failing aspects in me, the aspects that I didn't have. So we always see in others the things we crave in ourselves that we don't feel we have in ourselves. And I help people that, and I see these patterns in people that are abused, attracted, controlling people, toxic relationships, controlling relationships, and failing relationships. So usually failing relationships kind of indicates this imbalance of power. And I felt confrontation was extremely difficult. I didn't like that in any way, shape or form, and I avoided at all costs. And I kind of sat on my hands in many respects, but couldn't understand my own feelings. Does this sound similar to you? Okay, so the things that we have in common, the second part, things that I started, my background is coaching and personal development, professional development, corporate development, and I became fascinated in this stuff because I found that I was suffering. So it was like, why am I struggling with this? Why am I suffering with this stuff? So I became curious and passionate, and then wanted to help others, and I could see these same patterns. People pleasers. The people that attracted this sort of toxic relationship were people pleasers. They were focused on other people, and they were the kindest, lovely people, but they were the ones that were suffering, increasingly frustrated and building resentment, all internal, which builds stress, and stress affects your body. Stress is, you probably know about stress, biggest killer. So, or the symptoms of stress express yourself in disease in the body. So that's another subject. But people pleasers, you've suffered some trauma in some respect. Now, some trauma can be overt. It can be really obvious. Yes, this happened in, traumatic events happened in childhood. That happened in childhood. Or it could be covert, that it's like, no, I don't know, nothing. I had a good childhood. My family was fine. I was happy. I was blah, blah, blah. So sometimes it's really difficult to unearth, for that person to unearth on their own what was in their childhood that was traumatic enough to give them this negative belief about themselves deep in their subconscious. always point down, deep in their subconscious. What was it? And I had that. What was it in me that, that really formed this negative belief about myself, that I was ugly, stupid, and useless, but useless to a deep core level, that I couldn't trust myself and I'd sabotage myself. Like, what was it? What event in my childhood, in my, what? There wasn't anything. It's only through talking to somebody else that you can really uncover this, and they can hear this stuff, and they can, if they've experienced this stuff, if they know this stuff. Does that make sense? Another thing we had in common, we all have in common, when we suffer from this, is that we feel like we're not enough. And not enough in I'm not good enough, like I've said, ugly, stupid, useless. Everyone has different things because we're all unique, and it's a different story for everybody. We're all unique. So it's along the lines of not good enough, something's missing, not lovable, stupid, ugly, too fat, too thin, too not attractive enough, too stupid, to just not worthy, just whatever. There's so much, it boggles my mind, except it doesn't, because I've heard it so many times. There's so many different things that all, my thighs are too fat, my hands are too big, my face is too big, my head's too big, my hips are too small, my hips are too big, just ridiculous. But that we think we're broken in some way, there's something missing, and all these patterns repeat. It's not just a one-off. That when we actually do the work and trace back the history, it's like, oh my crap, you see how that all aligns? It all aligns because there's a pattern repeating. And in my relationships, although I went from one relationship to the next because I couldn't be alone, they were very different. However, there was a deeper core pattern. And once I saw it, it was like, holy crap, you can't unsee it. Does that make sense? Can you notice, do you know what patterns you're repeating? So what causes these traits? The causes of this stuff, like we just started there, is these past traumas. Okay, that might be really obvious. It might be some form of abuse, something that happened, some overt trauma. It might be more hidden. My family were fine, a happy childhood, happy. But it's like sometimes that's a more challenging one to unearth. Okay, what caused these negative beliefs down deep in your subconscious to really make you think these negative things about yourself? So I find that's interesting, uncovering these patterns of thinking, these patterns of thought, and where they come from. I just pause it to see what I put. Growing up on a battlefield, that was an old expression I used. I thought it was a lovely one, where you know when to keep your head down when the bombs are coming in. So that walking on eggshells, in your family, or with substance abuse or alcohol abuse, those are battlefields, and when to walk on eggshells. You're brought up in an environment when boy, do you know when to keep your head down, when not to ask for things, when not to speak, and diversely, when to. Walking on eggshells, that's just a brilliant expression. And all this stuff makes we naturally, when we're growing up, build decisions in our mind, build beliefs in our mind. We make decisions on stuff that happens again and again and again and again and again and again, so it forms a really reliable pattern in our brain, and that's the formation of the beliefs. Now, I got really curious about that and the science behind how the brain works, and I've done a lot of research around that, how these beliefs are formed, these neural highways in our brains work, and how they're formed. So I understand that, but there was more to it than that. And the other aspect, it's how we form those beliefs. It's similar to phobias, because we kind of understand, somebody's got a phobia, something happened, and we've got a really reliable phobia, a reaction, physical reaction, emotional reaction that triggers off in an instant, and it's very generalized. Any mention of, I'll say cats, because I know somebody that's got a cat phobia. Any mention of a cat, or imagine a cat, it fires off in the brain. It triggers that reaction. So we understand generally how phobias are built. These negative beliefs deep on our subconscious are a bit like that. They're so reliable and generalized. They're quite illogical in a way, although it's logical how the brain builds it and then generalizes it. So we've got that. That's one aspect. But another aspect is personality. So we all have a natural propensity to think and behave in certain ways. For example, we might be too neurotic, and this is the Big 5 personality profiling tool, which is hugely reliable and comes with tons of detail. You might be too neurotic. You might worry too much, get situational anxiety. You think about things too much, and you build up your own anxiety, and you tie yourself in knots. I've had panic attacks in the past because, ironically, I was having such a lovely time. It was so perfect, so wonderful, but I felt I wasn't worthy. And, panic attacks, it's a crazy thing. Next one, you might be too agreeable, too nice, too kind, thinking back to other people too much of the time, putting them on a pedestal. You're not good enough. They're way better than you, and that's a difficult thing. If you're too agreeable, you're serving others too much, not able to focus on the decisions that you need to make for your life. That's going to take you in the directions that you need to go. Or you might be too conscientious. You might be doing too much for other people, especially in an organization. People come to you and you go, even though it's not your job, it's like, look, come here, I'll do it. Oh, thank you. Maybe some people lean on you too much because you take on too much and you do too much. All right, that's a really difficult thing, and because you're so kind, and and people don't do it as well as you, and it's easier, and it's just like, oh, I'll do it, and you take on like 2-3 times the responsibility that you have, or you should, or maybe you're a bit OCD, you just clean too much, you just you do too much. That makes sense? Or, and that was called conscientiousness, and there's 5. These are just 3 of the 5 levels. You could be too low on conscientiousness, which means you're not organized enough, you're not disciplined within yourself enough, and you don't do the things that you ought to, and you let other people off the hook too easily. But diversely, you let yourself off the hook too easily. Does that make sense? Right, I've stopped and started. I wonder if you could tell. A few times. So I hope this is working for you. If not, just let me know, because this is a quick fire one. I just thought I'll just get it out there rather than trying to get it perfect. Anyway, what can we do? Number 4, what can we do? Well, firstly, understand yourself and your situation. So your past and your personality. Really understand it. For me, that's the way I do it, but people do it in other ways. But for me, there's 2 aspects: understanding your past fully, and not just according to you, understanding your past, but also understanding your personality, and what makes it up, and then take the action that you identify across that you want to work on and improve. And it's quite simple to work on, although it's not always easy, especially to do on your own. Working on yourself on your own, that's why coaching can be so powerful. It's generally asking questions, but it's asking the right questions to really unearth from you, oh, that, I don't know why I think that. Why do I think that? Oh God, I'm thinking that. So it's not always easy to do on yourself and unearth the stuff that's holding you back, because you are your own problem. You get in your own way all the time. You're the one that's holding you back. So it's like, you're probably not the best one to solve the problems, except you're the only one that can solve the problem. So having somebody ask you those questions is a really powerful thing. So this is what you can do, the things you can do. If you're too high on neuroticism, if you're too, you worry, your anxiety, you can, it's about getting strategies to help you worry less. If you're too agreeable, if that's too high, you're too much of a people pleaser, it's getting strategies to be disagreeable when needed. You don't lose your kindness, but you don't waste it on people. You're able to say no to people, and that's like, the last thing you want to be is disagreeable. But sometimes being disagreeable, I love it now. I actually enjoy it. And having a confrontation is exactly what you need to do to be able to move on and to move forward and to move your life where you need to be. Does that make sense? Sometimes it's a really difficult thing to do, and because it's so difficult, that's what you need to do. If your conscientiousness is too high and you're doing too much for other people, you need to learn to preserve yourself and your kindness and your gifts and say no. Learn when to let go of the stuff that you could do but you shouldn't do. Or if your conscientiousness is too low and you're not disciplined enough to, you don't do stuff, you let yourself off the hook, you let other people off the hook, hold yourself accountable, hold other people accountable, and don't let yourself off the hook. Build your discipline. Building discipline is such a basic thing in so many different ways, but if you don't have it, that's what you need to build first. That's a building block of everything else that's to come. Does that make sense? Now, because as I've said already, I was a coach already, I was in personal professional development, but because I'd suffered from this, I'd had the same pains perhaps that you have, I'd suffered in the same ways that you have, it became only natural that I became passionate about this and curious about this. It's like, what's wrong with me? I want to find out. And then it's like, well, of course I want to share that with other people, and with other people that have suffered in the same way. Does that make sense? So if you relate to this, you relate to what I've shared with you, you want to make a positive change in your life, and you're ready to make a change, or you're ready to find out more, you wanted to find out more, and you value learning from somebody who's been through the same stuff, who understands this stuff, then by all means use the link that I put in here in the description to have a chat with me. But there's some things that you need to know first. And I think this is what I called number 5 things, or what might stop you, because I'm a little bit further along in the journey than you are, perhaps. So there's a few things that might get in your way. I might seem confident. I might make it seem too easy, but that's just because I've done a lot of work, and I've tons of money on courses that didn't work, tons of time of failing in my business, tons of time of failing relationships. I've 16 years I've been at this stuff, okay? But you might feel scared to have a conversation with me, to actually, speak to Will on the other end, might, put the fear of God in you, and I understand that. That's why humor is really important to me. And now that might not come across. Humor is a really important tool. Try having a panic attack when you're laughing, giggling. It just doesn't work. So humor injected at certain places can actually break patterns and negative patterns. You might feel that this isn't for you, that you don't have the money. You don't have the money, of course, like this is my living, or that you're beyond fixing, so money beyond fixing, or that you can't be helped for whatever reason. You can't be helped. Now, all those are inauthentic fears. They are completely understandable, but they're not real. Those are fears we hold in there, but I completely understand them. And that's what might stop you, getting in contact or taking this the next step further. Oh yeah, that was really interesting. Next video, without actually making or taking action on changing yourself for good. Other things, I've put number 6, caged by your own thinking. Can you imagine a pretty bird cage with you caged in there, seeing the outside world, but caged by your thoughts? You need to let yourself free, and you can change your outcomes in life, setting yourself free, opening the door of that cage, and you can have happiness, you can have confidence. What else have I put? 3 more things: relationships, good, positive, balanced relationships. You can improve your finances hugely, and you can have better health. So many people suffer when they have low self-worth. They suffer with, it's reflected in their health, and you can have those 5 things, absolutely, but it takes that work, and you have to let yourself out of the cage. Does that make sense? So if you're ready to take a step towards a better life, and I'm genuinely invested in you doing that, you making the changes, and that's why I put guarantees in place with all my work. But I'm invested in that for you. But I had to do the work on myself, and it's taken a long time. But I've learned a lot in that process. So if you want to take the next step, then by all means use the link, and we can have a chat. And I promise you that at least I will make you smile, which is a positive thing. And I put a PS, all right, which was number 7. The next step. PS, if you're low on conscientiousness, which is that doing thing, you might have a tendency to leave things to the last minute, leave things, I'll do that later, i.e. never. You leave it behind you and forget all about it. This is about breaking those patterns. If you're high in conscientiousness, you do too much for other people, you probably think just a minute, I need to read this. That's what it is. I put time. You probably think you haven't got enough time. You do so much as it is. You manage as you are. You always do manage, because you do an incredible amount. 2.5, 3 times the normal work that people do. This is about breaking that negative aspect of that pattern. Never having enough time for you, or never being able to invest in you. Always investing in other people. Always doing things for other people. If you worry too much, you'll probably overthink this way too much and get way too anxious to ever press the link and chat to me. And this is about finally getting control of that negative pattern, that anxiety. Does that make sense? Does that sound good? And lastly, we're just going to finish in a second. If you're high in agreeableness, you'll probably be thinking you're not worthy for my time, and that I should be helping more deserving people. And this is about you. The world needs, it makes me emotional. The world needs more kind people like you, if this is you. We just need to be able to stick up for ourselves better, and I want to help you do just that. Okay, that's enough from me. I hope that's been interesting. 20 minutes, quite a long time. So maybe that's way too long. So maybe I need to structure it more. All right, many thanks. Hope you're well. Do contact me with any questions. Give me any comments. Let me know and speak to you soon. I hope you're well. Goodbye.